I run an organization called Both Hands Foundation. What we do is we help families raise money for adoptions, and we do it by working on a widow's house. Now, whenever I tell somebody that, in a conversation, they're always very polite. And they go, oh, yeah, that's nice, But you can tell they got this glaze in their eyes like they have absolutely no idea how it works or what I'm talking about. And I have found the best way to explain this, and so you get it, is to tell you how it happened. I was on the board of Bethany Christian Services sometime at the turn of the century, and one year I was in charge of the fundraiser. I love golf, so I said, well, let's do a golf fundraiser. And it was the kind where you ask people to join, like 20 people, and ask all of them to send letters out to their friends sponsoring them. Does everyone get that? You have to understand that concept to get this whole thing. Okay. So I sent my letters off like I was supposed to. Had a buddy who I was in a Bible study with, a CLC class, Bill Iverson. Bill Iverson sends my letter back to me. Does not include a check. Just took a magic marker, and he scribbled across my letter. He said, JT, if you told me you were working on a widow's house, I might sponsor you. But you're just golfing. Nice cause, but not my money. Now, it hurt my feelings a little bit, but at the same time, I was thinking, man, that's a good idea. And I called him a couple days later. We talked and laughed about it, and he still didn't give me any money. But the idea just never left my mind. Whenever I saw a 5K or a golf tournament after that, I kept thinking, man, if all those people were working on a widow's house, would it be better? Would it be better? It almost haunted me. I just couldn't figure it all out until a couple years later. I'm in church. We're going to Fellowship Bible Church at that point, and I remember running into a friend of mine. I hadn't seen him in a couple months. I said, hey, Don, what's up? And he looked at me and says, I'm adopting 4 kids from Moldova. Now, Don already has 3 kids at home. I said, what happened? And he said, well, I went on a mission with Sweet Sleep, delivering beds to orphanages, in Moldova, and fell in love with this little boy, George. We became inseparable throughout the week. When we got home, we started the adoption process. And in the process, I found out George has 3 siblings. And Don says, we're not going to break up the siblings. And it took me back to when I was 12 years old, living on a farm in northeastern Iowa. There was 5 of us kids. And I remember one weekend in March, my mom and dad left to celebrate their 16th wedding anniversary. And us 5 kids were kind of farmed out to different places. And I remember Saturday night being brought home because mom and dad were coming home. And the neighbors where I was at, they dropped me off. I'd played in the barn all day, so I was dirty. I had to go in the back, the basement. And my other brother, he went in the front door. But I remember sitting in our basement, bending over, unlacing my boots. And my brother came down the stairs. I looked up at him and I said, are mom and dad home? And he looked at me and he said, mom and dad are dead. And I said, what? He said, mom and dad are dead. They were killed in a car accident an hour ago. And he turned around and walked upstairs. I mean, in his defense, he just came to the front door and got the news as he walked to the house and came down to tell me. But I remember that moment. I remember hitting that cold cement basement floor, crying and wailing like any 7th grader would. I remember thinking about mom and dad. Different flashes of memory went through my head. I know what it's like to be an orphan. I know what it's like to wonder, who's going to take care of us? What's going to happen to us? What now? I know what it's like to wake up the next morning, and for the first 15 seconds, you just think this could be a dream. And then it starts to dawn on you, this is not a dream. I'm never going to see mom and dad again this side of heaven. That's hard for a 7th grader. But I also know what it's like to be rescued. Because 3 months before the accident, my mom and dad and my aunt and uncle, my mom's sister and her husband, they changed their wills. That if anything would happen to one of the couples, the other couple would take the kids. My aunt and uncle lived in a suburb just like Brentwood in Milwaukee called Brookfield. They had 3 kids of their own, a 2-year-old, a 3rd grader, and a 5th grader. They were 33 years old, just starting a business a year earlier. They took all 5 of us in. Yeah, they're my heroes. They took in a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, an angry 7th grader, an 8th grader, and a 9th grader, boys. I know what it's like to have someone come up and say, we got you. We got you. It may not always be pretty, but we got you. So back to the hallway in church. Don says we're not going to break up the siblings. I'm the just right guy to say that to, because I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, you sure? You better be careful. You know, I'm sitting there, and I'll tell you exactly what went through my mind. What went through my mind was, here's a man who's trusting God in a way that I envy. I want to have that kind of faith. You know, I want to think like that. And I looked at Don. I said, Don, how much is it going to cost? Because by then we had adopted, our 5th child was adopted from China. And he said, I don't know, they're telling us 70 or 80,000. I said, do you have any idea how you're going to raise that money? He said, no. I said, I think I got an idea. And then, so long story short, Don and I recruited about 14, 15 friends of ours. We all sent letters out to everyone we knew, and we said, would you sponsor me for the day while I work on this widow's house? All the money I raise is going to go towards the cost of getting these 4 kids home from Moldova. I found a widow in Franklin on Straw Street, and got all the supplies we needed donated. I mean, anyone we talked to, they just said, when they heard what we were doing, they said, yeah, dude, what do you need? You know, it was fun. I remember that day was a sunny, beautiful March day. 35 people showed up to work. We made a difference in Miss Lucia's life, and everyone had a blast. And when it was all over, said and done, we'd raised a little over $70,000. I mean, I was expecting 10 or 15. But 70, I thought, man, it's like we're standing on holy ground. And we were, I think. It's like God was saying, dude, JT, it's widows and orphans. What do you expect? You know? And about a year later, we did another project. A friend of mine come up to me and said, hey, I heard you do it, Don. Would you help me? And I said, yeah, let's do it again. And we found a widow in Franklin, Miss Diane. Actually, her husband was my son's teacher. He was tragically killed in a car accident 7 or 8 months earlier. She had a 4th grader and 8th grader. And Miss Diane, we put a new roof on her house, and I remember standing on that roof, and I remember looking on the front, and I counted 54 people that day. And we transformed the front of her yard. We transformed the back of her yard. I mean, we put a new roof on, which is not something I suggest. And then I looked at the yard. I looked at the street, and there was 19 cars on the street. And I thought, this is a great sign. But it took me back to the farm. About a month after the accident on the farm, us 3 boys were still there. My 2 of those sisters were 3 and 5. They moved in with my aunt and uncle right away. Us 3 boys stayed on the farm with my uncle Clifford, my dad's brother. They were partners. He couldn't farm 400 acres by himself. And my dad had a sister who was a widow. She moved in and took care of the food and everything. So we were still there to finish out the school year. But I remember it was a beautiful April day getting off the bus. And a bus stops about a half mile from the house. It's on a hill. You can see a lot of our farm. But I got off the bus, and I looked in the fields, and there were all our neighbors with their tractors and their plows and their discs and their planters. I mean, it was Everett Ellison, Leland Meyer, Bob Grana, Bert Juvick, Ed Cooper, Johnny Wolf, Jack Melcher, Doc Weimiller. I mean, when you're 12 years old, you know whose tractor's who. But these are my dad's buddies were coming and taking care. I mean, I know what it's like to get your feet washed. I know what it's like to get your feet washed and have no way to repay it. And I went back to that on the roof now, looking at those 19 cars. All that came rushing back to me. I said, this is how we should live. My wife and I went out to dinner that night, and I said, I think I'm supposed to do this. She was a homeschooling, stay-at-home mom, 5 kids. She said, have you thought about health insurance? Maybe a pay or anything. I said, yeah, what would you think about you going to work outside the home? She said, yeah, she agreed to. At some point. But she did, and you know what? Her career, the last 14 years, it's amazing what God's done. She is now one of the people in charge of development at Concerned Women for America. She fights for 7 very core, basic principles to have in our government, and I'm really, really proud of the way God has taken hers deal. It's amazing. But I started Both Hands in August of 2008. This is my favorite part. We've done 1,119 projects in 44 states. Yeah, you can cheer that one. It says there it says 1,029 family projects. That should tell you about 10% of our projects are organization projects, just group projects, a small group, a Sunday school class, fraternity, sorority. Anybody who wants to raise money for something that's related to orphans or foster care, we will help them do a project, okay? But we've done 1,119 projects, 1,229 widows have been served, and 1,373 kids are no longer orphans. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. And we've raised $14.6 million for families to use and organizations to use. And I should say this. Yeah, go ahead and cheer that one too. That's worth it. I have no idea. And I got to tell you this, 100% of the money that we raise for families or groups, that goes to the cause. We don't take anything out for our operations. I just set it up that way. I says we're going to be different. And you know what? People just donate because they like what we do, and they say, here, you just keep doing what you're doing and blessing these families. And we haven't missed a payroll yet. So God's blessed us. And, I love telling this story. I hope it inspires you, because for me, I don't know why this kind of imagery fires me up. But I picture Satan in the morning, with his little minions. And they go around everybody, and they got their little list. When they get to my name, I don't want them checking the box that says not a threat. I want them thinking, he's up again. And that's how I picture this church, honestly. You guys are movers and shakers. You guys do something. You know what? When my mom and dad were killed in a car accident, there was probably a headline in the county paper. Local farmer and his wife, Othello and Laura Mae Olson, died in a car accident. They leave 5 children behind, and so and so. When my aunt and uncle took us 5 kids in, there was no headline. Because unsung heroes don't get headlines. But this church is full of unsung heroes. We got people in the church who've adopted. We have some warriors, some heroes, in my opinion, of people who are in the foster care system. And some of you are waiting to figure out what you're going to be the unsung hero of. And what I encourage you to do is think about how you can get involved with helping these foster families or people who've adopted. If you just went and did their laundry once a week, provided a meal, maybe you helped them babysit a little bit, so they could go out and have a date. There's a lot of things we can do to make a difference, because that's what we're here for. Like Michael Easley always used to say, he said, compared to where we're going, right now we're at a clean bus, truck stop station, restroom. And where we headed, we just want to go there. We want to make a difference. And I know you folks want to make a difference too. So that our souls will never be at those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat, but at least we gave it a shot. So here's a quick video to show you a little bit of what we do. Oh, the book. I forgot. Yeah, every time I tell this story, someone says, you should write a book. So we did. It's out there on the table. If you want to get one, the board has decided to give them away. So if you want to grab one, you're welcome to have it. Okay? Thanks. Here's the video.
The video you're about to watch is an adoption fundraiser. A team of volunteers have gathered to raise funds for an adoption by serving a widow in their community. The team today made a huge impact. I think you're going to enjoy watching this video.
Hey, my name is Caleb.
I'm Casey.
And we're the Van Rookels, and we're here doing our Both Hands project at Miss Gale's, where we're building a fence and painting a barn.
We are helping Miss Gale for the one hand of the Both Hands, serving the widow, and the other hand is for the orphan who we hope to adopt. Adoption has been on our heart for about 13 years now, and every time we explored it up until now, the Lord said not yet. But we are super excited that He finally said yes. So we are in the matching portion of a domestic infant adoption, and so we're just waiting to one day meet our baby.
and we're on my farm. We have incredible shed painting going on. We have front fence painting, staining going on, and wow, does that look good. And then we have a lot of fencing going on north of the barn that is sheep tight. The blessing is so overwhelming, and God has been so good through a lot of challenges. We had drought, so it was hard to get fence posts in. There was some equipment that broke, which was fine because we got better equipment after that. You know, God's hand was on it all.